Hey, main babe, welcome back to part 3 of a 3-part series. I know you went and watched part 1 and 2, so you already know we was cutting out a sewing that was in way too long. We did a detox treatment on it, and then we did a not so haircut because she was scared. You would know that if you seen the other 2 videos. But we did a little something something. A little something, something. It look a little better. But right now, we're going to put a protective style in there. Now, her hair is feeling all good after that detox clay treatment. It's feeling so soft. And, that little cut that we did, it did a little something, something. So her hair feel a lot better. But we're going to make it even softer. We're going to put this Main Magic leave-in conditioner all over her roots, her hair shaft, her ends. Because I like to butter up the hair before we go ahead and lock it up in a 6-month sewing. Now, make sure you part out the leave out and try not to get all that butter all over the leave out that the person or you might be leaving out. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to finish buttering up. And now it's time to braid. There are many ways to skin a cat. And there are so many different braid down methods you can use out there. But number one, don't use the braid down method where you braid the hair straight back. That's so old school and it don't work. You would tear out the nape of somebody's hair and the back of their hair will be looking like skin. Okay, so make sure you don't do a straight back. Make sure you create an anchor braid first, like what I did. Now, I know a lot of y'all is strong and y'all can take a lot in this life, but please don't take a tight braid. Don't braid nobody hair tight and don't braid your own hair too tight. Make sure you pulling out the little fuzzies. You ain't got to braid every hair strand on your head and make it fit in the braid. That is going to defeat the purpose of a protective style. If you try to catch everything, you gonna pop somebody here and they gonna have them little bumps in the back of their head. So try to pull it out, ask them to bend their head forward, bend it back, let them know that, hey, you can let me know if I'm braiding your hair too tight and I will just unravel it, go back and start all over. But definitely make sure it's comfortable because tight braids are not necessary to have your sewing in for 6 months. It's all about how you stitch and how you lock that thread. Now, you don't even have to have super small braids either. You just got to use a little bit of physics, a little bit of geometry, and that's it. Pay attention to their hair growth pattern, pay attention to the shape of their head, pay attention to what hairstyle they trying to get, where the part is going to be, and come up with a braid pattern that's going to suit the style and the hair texture and the hair type and the hair head. For instance, you see I did like more of like a beehive type of braid pattern going on right here. I wouldn't really do this on somebody who got thick hair because with their sewing, and if they're going to leave it in for maybe 6 months, if you do the beehive and the beehive is closer to the top of the head, when it grow out, it's going to turn into a cone head. Now, what I'm doing, I know you're like, why are you spraying the hair down with water after you just blow dried it and oiled it and braided it? Well, I do this because this is a protective style and you want the hair back in its most comfortable state. So you're going to mist it down. Dang, the hair on my arms is really evident. Girl, I need to shave that. Girl, that don't look right in the video. Anyways, braiding down in a stretch state is just more comfortable for the client. So then after you got to braid it down, then you can spray it down and get the scalp back hydrated, the hair strands back hydrated before you go ahead and sew in the weave. I like to put these growth drops on, and I always recommend the person during their sewing, they're misting their hair often, like they're opening up their sewing, they're spraying the braids in the sewing, they're just making sure that their braids underneath the sewing never gets too dry, and then they use these growth drops, and that's just going to equal to a lot of new growth and stronger hair and thicker hair. So when they take the sewing out in 6 months, they should have 3 inches of hair. You see what I'm saying? Okay, moving on. I like to string my needles up all at one time. Sometimes I'll string up 100, 150. Okay, because I just want to keep going. I don't want to stop. I don't want to ask the person to help me string needles. So this is what I do. So if you're a stylist, the night before, just go ahead and string up 100 and 150 needles. That way, if you have 2 clients back to back or even 3 sewings, you just ready to go, especially if they're all using black thread. And you want to just go ahead and sew up the end of the braid. And at this point, a lot of people will use a net. In my opinion, you don't need a net for a sewing unless you have alopecia or hair loss or a bald spot that I need to cover up with a net so it can create some type of back end where I can just sew across. Or unless somebody uses a net. I have no problem using a net, but you don't have to think that having a net is going to make your sewing last longer. It's just really for people who need a weaving net because of hair loss or anything like that. But some people like a net, and I don't have no problem with it. I'll give you what you want, okay? I work for you while I'm doing your hair. Now, for the first track, I like to do a single track. I know some people like to double track the whole way, but I just feel like the first track, because there's so much friction on the back, on fabrics, on your clothes, I just think the first track should just be a single track so it's not that heavy on your neck. And then the next track, you can start doubling up. But the first track, I like to do single real quick. I know there are some people out there that are like, please don't cut my tracks. When you're sewing in my hair, I just want you to just keep sewing and bend my tracks. I like to cut tracks because I like to focus on how the hair is going to lay over the months. I know some people are just like, oh, if you cut my tracks, my hair is going to shed. If you get good hair, your hair is not going to shed. And if you know how to stitch, you know how to end a track and stitch up a track to make sure it doesn't end. You go ahead and you back stitch, just like if you make an outfit. You don't expect your outfit to just tear apart in shreds. No, because the person, the seamstress, makes sure they back stitch. But if someone says, don't cut my tracks, I won't cut your tracks. So that's just me. And the sewing lasts long. It still doesn't shed if you get really good hair extensions, and you'll still be able to reuse it. And if you're a stylist, if the tracks are cut up and you know how to sew in, just sew it back in. Just you puzzle piece. You ain't ever played puzzle, Tetris, nothing like that. Just lay it down and get it in there. I learned it's better to stitch close together and to lock your threads for long-lasting results. Some people, when they would cut out their own sewing, they would call me and be like, girl, you use a whole spool of thread in my hair. Why I got so much threads? But hey, I like to stitch close together. I don't want when you brushing your hair, it's getting caught up in your brush. Your comb is getting caught up in the tracks. Your finger slipping through the tracks. Your man feeling through your tracks, pulling out your threads. I just stitch it close together and just lock it in there, lock my threads after every loop. And I suggest you do that too. It's very easy. I feel like one loop is enough. Some people do 2-3 loops. You don't need all that. You really don't need all that. I feel like sewings are making another comeback. They always die down a little bit with the rise of tape-ins or K-tips, even though those things have been around for a long time. I was doing tape-ins 10 years ago. I was doing K-tips 15 years ago. That's how I started doing hair. I was doing, and we called it infusions. We called the tape-ins hot heads. So I was doing that a long time ago, but nothing is going to get you results like a sewing, not no bonding. I'm not saying that those hairstyles will tear out your hair, even though they will. But I just feel like a sewing, you'll be able to really leave the majority of your hair alone and not manipulate it. When you do other protective styles like tape-ins, K-tips, you have so much of your natural hair in the mix. And if you are trying to grow out your hair, you're constantly manipulating your hair day in and day out, trying to blend it with the weave, enjoying the look of those versatile hairstyles. But when you do a sewing, you really lock up 80 to 95% of your hair, sometimes 100% of your hair, which allows your hair to be left alone and protected from your ass, because you the problem. You the one tearing out your hair. You using a brush too much. You using a comb too much. You're doing this style, that style. You're using too much edge control. If you just allow your hair to rest and relax and live a soft life underneath a weave, and you maintain it with shampooing, a sewing will not let you down. But let me pause, because it depends on who put that sewing in and who take that sewing out. That's why you guys can book with me now. I have come out of retirement. I got a salon opening October 6th. Make sure you book me for your 6-month sewing.